The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Get involved with Access Fort Wayne and make your own television programming. Call 421-1250 to find out more.
I'm Sandra Gonzalez, and I drive the bus. I'll take you where you need to go. School, shopping, work. Hi, Mrs. Williams.
Every Friday, she goes to get her hair done. That's the Roberts, taking the grandkids to the zoo.
So come on board. We're headed wherever life takes you.
Make changes, what kind of changes? So relative to the process, does anybody have any questions?
Just one, what is the paratransit service?
Okay. Okay. Citilink is comprised of two services. One is fixed route, and that's the map. I think you had the map. But then there is a complementary. Well, we call it complementary, but you still pay for it. There's a paratransit service, so that within 3/4 of a mile of any of the Citilink routes, that Citilink has an obligation to provide a curb-to-curb service for those folks that can't use the fixed route service.
Oh, you mean people with disabilities?
Yes. Yes. That's that, and it's labeled or it's trademarked as.
Those are the smaller vehicles?
Yep, those are the smaller ones.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else just on the process? Okay. So I always miss that slide. So as part of this, that a lot of the pieces, parts that go into a project or a study like this are pretty well laid out. It's, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. The key to make it also the Fort Wayne's plan is gathering input from people, getting comments, having conversations with people. So we want to make sure that folks have access to the information that we're talking about tonight, the information that we'll be developing as we continue to look at the route structure and things like that. That on the Citilink webpage, that under the resources, that there is a link that can get you to the transit development plan. So there you can find information about what we're doing, and you'll be able to continue to get information about what we're doing. And that if you leave your email address, that also, if we have a significant update, send you an email. That those folks that came to the meeting. So this will be a resource of just continuing to get updated information on the process and the progress that we're making in the plan. We'll also be having 2 more rounds of public meetings. The next one will talk about the ideas for potential change. The last one will be, okay, these are the things that we are recommending for changes in how Citilink operates. Okay? And those will be in the fall and then in the winter. I've kind of already talked about this, but we did a community survey that we did for the last part of June. We're putting together the results of that, and we'll get that to Citilink, but it asked questions to anybody in the community, not just those folks that use transit, but what are where are you traveling to and from, and do you use transit? And one of those questions, since you come to a community like this, and transit riders probably make up 2 or 3% of all of the travelers within the region. So we kind of like to ask the question of, well, if you don't ride, well, what would need to change for you to ride? And it generally comes back to it needs to be more convenient. So we ask that question, and we can get some response from that, and that's always a good one to understand, because a lot of people come back and say, it's just not for me. And it's good to have an understanding of all of those different things. So just a little bit about Citilink and the service that's provided. That in 2016, there were about 1.8 million trips made on the fixed route service in that year. And about 72,000 of the access of the paratransit trips. So you kind of stop and you think about 1.8 million, if you put another 1.8 million trips on the roadway network over the course of the year, yeah, that's got some impact on congestion and things like that. So what we're showing over here is the gold line is how paratransit ridership has changed between 2012 and 2016. That line is working its way up a little bit. And that's a line that we really want to make sure we're looking at closely, because when you look at the cost of the paratransit trips, that these are trips that are curb to curb, so they're not nearly as efficient on a trip-by-trip basis as with fixed route. So they're a pretty expensive trip. And you want to make sure that you're expending those dollars very effectively. So we'll take a good look at the patterns of those trips, and just to understand the implications of that investment. But then you can also see in the blue line there is the fixed route ridership, is that it has been declining over the course of the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. That is a trend nationally, a trend particularly in the Midwest, that transit ridership is just going down. Fewer people are making fewer trips on transit. Maybe it's a function of the economy is picking up. I can afford to drive a little bit more. Gas prices are a lot lower than they were a couple, 3 years ago. Maybe I can just afford to drive more. So those transit trips that I was making back in 2012, maybe I'm not making as many anymore, or I'm no longer a transit rider. But that has some very significant implications when we look at the cost. The blue line here is the annual expenditure. So we've got a budget of about $12 to $13 million for the Citilink service. And then the gold line is, well, what is it costing us per trip to provide fixed route and paratransit service? That as we see the ridership on fixed route is declining, our cost per trip is increasing. Yes.
Do you have any data on how many people that were using the fixed transit have switched over to the access?
That's a tough one.
But could that be why this is going up?
No, I think when you look at the numbers, that again you come back to this number,
Yeah,
and this
it's
is
not as
about
much,
4 or 5%. So it'd take a whole lot
Yeah.
to shift to make that happen. But
Yeah, we tend to attribute the increase in access rides to changes in the Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement issues statewide and here. We've got indication that over 20 vehicles that were previously operated by private for-profit carriers have left the market.
Right. Yeah.
And so Community Transportation Network and our access service have been trying to pick up the slack, and I think that's what's causing most of it. That and improved employment allowed more people with disabilities to get jobs, and so we're taking more people to work, which are regular trips every day.
So and one of the things that we did, and I've kind of already covered this, was in the onboard survey, which is really gathering information from the existing customer. So one of the questions we asked was, well, what's the purpose of your trip? And the graph here is showing the results of that, where that 47.1% of the biggest piece of the pie is people that are going to work. And then kind of, for the most part, I would kind of put all of the others into about equal slices of pie. Some are a little bit bigger, some are a little bit less. But when we're looking at the category of medical trips, that we're at about 12%, and that a lot of times is kind of that second tier after work trips. Most places, the primary purpose of transit is work, and it's just kind of interesting when you think about your typical driving trip, or if you're an auto driver over the course of the day. Work trip is about a quarter of your trips on general. And now I get to go to work and I go home and I kind of just sit there. But and some of the other ones that are a little bit interesting are the college trips. Those have been declining over the course of time. I think that also when you kind of look at college students, even over the last 4 or 5 years, the number of those that have vehicles continues to creep up, which is going to reduce the overall effectiveness there. And then under the category of other trips there, which is a pretty big slice, that a lot of those were to this building. A lot of the other ones were to the plasma centers, things like that, which okay, to me was a little bit surprising. We also asked a question about, well, how often do you ride? Because this is going to impact or influence some of the decision making. And the blue part of the pie there is about 62%. But what we look at is that 5 days a week or more, and then the 3 to 4 day, we kind of call those as the pretty much everyday rider. So we're looking at almost 80 or over 80% of our riders are everyday riders. And that, I think, is important as we think about if there are needs for changes and what might those be. And the last thing that the questions that I brought with me was how long have you been a customer? And almost 40% of the 38% here is the 5 years or more. Those blues are a little bit close together in color. Should have moved that one around a little bit more. And the interesting part there is the 6 months or less or a year or less makes up about 28%. So those are the new customers that are still figuring the system out. Those are the customers that today you're really trying to make the impression on to get them to understand how the system works and that the system is a viable alternative for them for transportation. So I think that is a key thing that we really want to think about as we're considering the system and looking at are there things that we need to do with the system. So any questions at this point? It was pretty high level stuff, not a whole lot of detail that don't have much. You dig down, way down, or you stay a little high?
Do you know how many riders have cars?
Yeah, we asked the question. I didn't bring oh, wait a minute.
It's 2.5 cars per household.
But that was for the communities.
Oh yeah.
That
not the riders. Point.
Yeah, it's a relatively small number. Okay, I'm going to be close on this one, but I think it was like it was 60% of the respondents that their household did not have a car. And so it's a pretty high percent.
At the time that they wrote, or just
at the time that they answered the question. So back in March.
it wasn't just because the car broke down.
We asked the question in a couple of different ways. We asked how many vehicles are available in your household, and did you have a vehicle available to make this trip that you could have used instead of this trip. So that's all included in the summary, and I can't remember the combination of those two right off the top of my head. But it was a pretty high percentage of the riders are essentially what we would define as transit dependent. They didn't have another car available to them to make that trip.
Can you break those numbers down by just a breakdown?
Sure. Oh, by how long they've been riding? Yeah, we can do that. There's tabulation. Send me a note if there are other things you want to see on the combinations, and get you a copy of the document. Just let me know.
Please tell us what SRF is again.
We're a consulting company. We're a transportation consulting company.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, some people they spec on riding buses because that some people walk around all the time, and then that people in their cars are Wayne, then they rely on Citilink, and then I think that Citilink should the hours should run for 11 o'clock at night, because the people got people working a third,
Right.
and then second, and then I think Citilink should have some like Indianapolis in New York, like on the mall. People like to go to the mall, and then a red bus is running at about 5 o'clock, and then you got to walk home while you, and then I think that Citilink should update their time, because that get people enough time to go to the mall, and then do what they want to do.
And then get back home.
And
Yeah.
back home,
Right.
because that nowadays that people ain't gonna take you home from the mall, and you gotta walk from Greenbrook to home. And I think that, and also that Citilink should have some driver go out to Mayville Road, because that you know, have different route on the route they go to still on the road, but you got more people like go to Mayville Road, and then like the airport, because long time ago they used to have a route go to the airport, and too many people and ride at the airport, and they stopped there. But after they should give people enough time, those people who ain't got no cards, so they it just stop at 11 o'clock at night, and then I'm gonna hire more drivers. I know your budget. Because that we, system of the 10 caps. Downtown is adding on, and then I think the Citilink should get a route at 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, good point, because then that leads us right into what I want to do now. Is that, and I think you covered everything as part of the game. So what that you've got different places around the room, and that back here we've got a bunch of post-it pads, and what I would like you to do is on separate notepads or note sheets is write down those things that you think that Citilink does well, those things that you think Citilink needs to work on. So that's one thing to help us gather information from you. And then over here, that what we have is these little bags, which are your bank. So there's 15 coins in your bank, and there are a number of different things that Citilink could do, and it includes extending hours, it includes extending routes, and that what I want you to do is use your coins to vote as to which you think is most important of this group. So I've got some kind of predefined ideas of more paratransit service, of more 30-minute routes to replace some of the 60-minute routes. We have provide more shelters to make it more convenient as you're waiting. We have extend the service hours. as you were saying, I have add Sunday service, because that's one that we hear quite a bit. And then we have the idea of new routes. And for the new routes, I'm asking you to kind of tell me where you would want that route to go. And then I've also got a category here of other. If you think that, if you have an idea of something that Citilink should be doing that you don't see on this list, I have a category of other. You can write that down, and then what you would do is put your coins in the cup of those things, of each of those that you think is most important. Okay, you don't have a whole lot of coins here, which is the world that Citilink lives in. So if you can use these to kind of vote your preference as to how you would spend your money. And then the last one is over here. And again, it'll come back to, you've covered them all. So what this is a map of the current Citilink routes. So all of the routes in the various colors are where Citilink goes. You know, here's the 69 corridor, the 469 corridor, and you know, downtown, and then the south side and the north side. It goes all the way out to New Haven, because there's a route that goes out to New Haven. That I've got some little tape dots over here, and what I would want you to do is I'm going to give everybody 3. So this is, I have to tell you if there, where would you like to go that Citilink doesn't. And I'm only giving you 3. So you're going to have to pick your most important. I'm not going to give you 50 and you can just put them everywhere. I'm giving you 3. So it's decision time on where you think service ought to go but does not. Okay? So if you think that service ought to go out to some of the industrial areas that are developing out here on 469, you put a dot out there. Okay? Or if you think service ought to go way up north, and last night at the library we had people talking about getting out to the GM plant. You should provide service out there. Just different ideas that people were including. So these are the 3 areas that if you could help us provide, or by providing us with your input, that's the primary thing that we want to get out of this evening. Okay? So you can kind of start at any one of these that you want. Some people have already jumped ahead. And hopefully I followed your instruction. But are there any questions?
Question for you. This is Pi Morai Atomic. On the pit chain, the tension between, like, first step I went on Spine 1. It doesn't make no sense me having to go all the way downtown when there's another route that comes close. Is there a better way to make this more smoother?
So when you're trying to get out to Parkview North,
Yes.
and you're coming from where?
Spine 1 and a few there on that 8.
Okay. So one thing you could do is just take the 8 to Turnstone and then cut through on Spy Run Extension, walk down the path over to Parnell, and then you can catch the 15 there. That
I asked you anything about that.
Why they pay me the big bucks.
While you're talking about Turnstone, I don't find, since Turnstone is for people with disabilities, I'm visually impaired, unless I haven't figured something out, Turnstone's hard to get to.
It is.
And that does not make sense.
Right.
A place that's for people with disabilities ought to be able to get easy to get into, like League for the Blind. You can have them come
we'll
in.
Pull in there.
Did you do that at Turnstone?
Well, here's what I was just there this morning, and you're perfect timing. And I'll tell you, kind of one of the things that we're testing, and we decided to extend the test, is on our half-hour 8. The Route 8 runs every 30 minutes, and so the one that runs on the 45 minutes, we are having it go around the triangle of one-way streets the opposite way, so that we're actually able to pull in next to Turnstone and drop people off there. And we were just checking to see how successful that was, and we've had, it appears, 3 or 4 people a day taking advantage of that, and we're kind of hoping that that will pick up. So we've extended that kind of demonstration through October. And so I will talk to you about how to do that, and you can help us test that to see if that's helping.
Okay.
Of course, our access service also goes there,
Yeah.
and so you can do door-to-door that way.
Yeah.
And then the other accommodation that we've made is for people who are access eligible. We will let folks that are using our Flex Route 21 ask that as an alternate stop. But it's just an accommodation for people that need it. We can't do it for everybody because then 21 would be more broken than it already is. We have 3 ways to get to that really awkward place. If they had just not put the turnstone there, we would be fine. Or if they just changed the state routes, that would be good too. But we're making it work as best we can. Good question though. We're working on that.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
I got one.
Okay.
I ride the buses all the time. Like, you buying buses, but the buses should be kind of big, because that if you be on a bus, you got to stand up, and the bus be full, and then I think that it should be bus got seat belt like the Bowen Community School. They get new seat belt. I think Citilink should have seat belt for the people who ride the bus, and then like I said, sometimes the bus be jammed, and then people got to stand up.
He's right.
Each way.
Yeah, he's right.
Then because that and then if Citilink can buy buses like for people who are long buses. I know we got short buses, but they need more buses kind of long for everybody can sit down at the bus service.
Okay.
So Marcus, when you call to complain that you have to stand up, that just makes my day. I am so excited that the buses are so full that you have to stand up. I am happy.
Because 50 times at the grocery store, she hears, why are you running those buses around with nobody?
But we've been buying longer buses, so we've been buying 40-foot buses instead of 35-foot buses, and so that gives us about 6 extra seats. So we're buying buses with more seats than we used to. We've got 7 of those now, I think it is. And the next ones that are coming next year will also be 40-foot as well. And in terms of seat belts, we can argue that all the day. Our smaller buses, our access buses, have seat belts, and we require people to wear seat belts in those buses. In the bigger buses, it's the same as the school buses. They build the buses so that they are strong. So in an accident, it's the other vehicle that loses, and our buses are very safe. So we really very seldom, when our bus is involved in an accident, unless somebody was standing up in the aisle, and that can happen sometimes, or they're not sitting in the seat for some reason or another. If they were standing, you're right, you'd be at more jeopardy. We've got the handholds there for you to hang on, but generally there are not injuries in accidents. It's really more property because they're pretty safe.
I was just on a bus getting here today, and this mother had 2 young children. I mean, they were not listening, but if the bus would have had to stop real fast, they would fly, and they were standing in the seat. Maybe if you had some belts for kids. I don't know, but certain,
and I almost mentioned that strollers are kind of an issue as well. Mm-hmm. We request that people fold up their stroller and hang on to their kids, but at least hang on to the stroller so that it's not rolling down.
Well, they weren't even in the stroller.
I know. It is hard. I mean, people. It's a public space. I mean, it's a little difficult, and the driver's driving.
you know, we can't really have monitors, so, yeah, I mean, but fortunately, we don't have a lot of accidents, and we don't have a lot of injuries, so. Knock on plastic.
Knock on plastic. Okay. So if you want to, part of you want to go back there and write out what you think is the good and bad. If somebody, others want to start over here.
Yeah. Is that a good one or a bad one?
Then I will come over here.
That could be something that would be like a commuter bus type thing. If we
just like with
yeah,
I could go see my nephews, relatives.
Like I said, that. Okay, since you out of town, what time you? When your bus stop, what time your bus start in the morning time?
About 4:45.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the point of it, right?
Yes.
Oh, they gave you so much. Okay. It's still something or do I have to write it down?
Did he select it? That's been read out.
Yeah, you gotta get to church. Earlier and later in the day is important. Use time between buses is more than, yeah, I gotta have more 30-minute routes because I don't know about paratransit because that takes away from the regular routes. Back to Sunday. Extended day there. I don't know about shelters. Nothing described on sheets. Maybe just one in here.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The kids on the bus go round and round, all over town. The pass for the bus goes swipe, 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 swipe. The pass for the bus goes swipe, 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 all over town. The kids on the bus, they love to ride, love to ride, love to ride. The kids on the bus, they